What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected voices meets daytime television's most controversial host? In just 34 seconds, a single comment would transform a routine morning chat show into television chaos that nobody saw coming. The ITV studios were buzzing that Tuesday morning. Morgan Freeman, legendary actor, narrator of countless documentaries, a man whose presence alone commanded silence, was in the building. He was scheduled for what everyone assumed would be a simple promotional interview on loose women. A few lighthearted questions, a friendly laugh or two, a quick chat about his latest film, and that would be that. Freeman settled into the purple guest chair, adjusting his navy blue jacket as he offered his trademark warm smile to the studio audience. Around him, the panelists, Nadia Sawalha, Linda Robson, and Kay Adams, flipped through their cue cards, expecting another routine segment. But Denise Welch, seated at the center like a queen on her throne, had something else in mind entirely. She had that glint in her eye, the one viewers had learned to fear. Trouble usually followed that glint, and today would be no exception. The interview began innocently. Freeman spoke with grace about his craft, the emotional depth required to bring characters to life, the responsibility of storytelling. His voice, rich and steady, filled the studio with the kind of calm that only he could summon. Then Denise struck. "Morgan," she cut in sharply, slicing through his sentence like a blade. "Let's talk about something real. All this acting nonsense, it's just pretend, isn't it? Anyone can memorize lines." The studio froze. Freeman paused, eyebrows lifting ever so slightly. He responded with measured professionalism, explaining that acting involved more than reciting words. It required empathy, discipline, and understanding human nature. Denise rolled her eyes so dramatically that half the audience leaned back in discomfort. Truthfully, no one expected her to escalate, but she did. She questioned his worth, mocked his career, dismissed his achievements, and accused him of being an overpaid puppet while real people were struggling. Every panelist shifted uncomfortably. Cameras zoomed in. The atmosphere thickened. And Freeman, calm, dignified, legendary Freeman, began to harden. His smile faded. His hands tightened. For the first time in his long career, he was being baited publicly and mercilessly. Then came the moment. The spark. The 34-second ignition point that would explode into a confrontation the studio would never forget. And the real story had only just begun. Morgan Freeman's composure, refined by decades of interviews and press junkets, was being tested more severely with each passing second. Denise Welch leaned back in her chair, studying him with an intensity that could only be described as predatory. She wasn't asking questions anymore. She was hunting. "Well, Denise," Freeman replied calmly, "I believe art helps society understand itself. We express emotions through stories." "Stories?" Welch snorted. "You mean pretending in front of a camera while people at home actually work for a living?" Linda Robson inhaled sharply. Kay Adams gave a subtle shake of her head, silently warning Welch to stop. But Denise pushed forward, emboldened by the tension she herself had created. Nadia attempted a rescue. "Morgan has done a lot of charitable work." "No, Nadia," Welch snapped, raising her hand dismissively. "Let's hear him defend why anyone should care about another Hollywood millionaire's opinion." Freeman shifted slightly, just enough for the audience to notice. His breathing steadied, but his jaw clenched. His fingers, resting on the chair's arms, curled inward. For someone known for eternal calm, the cracks were beginning to show. He leaned forward just slightly. "Miss Welch, success doesn't diminish a person's humanity, nor does it invalidate their experiences." Welch laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed throughout the studio. "Humanity? The only thing you share with regular people is oxygen." The studio audience gasped audibly. The tension thickened to the point of suffocation. Crew members exchanged nervous glances behind the cameras. The control room debated whether to intervene or let the train wreck unfold. Freeman's eyes narrowed. Beneath his calm exterior, a storm brewed. "I think," he said slowly, "you are confusing celebrity with character." Welch slammed her palm against the desk. "Character? You want to talk character, Morgan? You've been privileged your whole life." That was the moment Linda Robson finally broke. "Denise, stop. He's our guest." But Denise turned on her colleague with wild aggression. "Don't tell me how to do my job." The hostility, the insults, the taunts. It all swirled into a vortex of chaos. And Freeman, silently absorbing blow after blow, was reaching a dangerous threshold. He had not yet snapped, but he was close. Very, very close. The atmosphere in the Loose Women's studio was electric, but not with excitement. This was tension so sharp it could cut. Morgan Freeman sat almost motionless, his expression unreadable, though the tightening of his shoulders revealed a storm beneath the surface. Denise, sensing that she had total control of the moment, pushed even harder. "Anyone can do what you do," she said with a scoff. "Give me a microphone, and I'll narrate a documentary right now. It's not brain surgery, Morgan." Nadia flinched. Even Kay Adams, the calmest presence on the panel, pressed her lips together nervously. Denise had crossed lines before, but this was an assault, calculated and relentless. Freeman finally spoke, his voice low, his tone coated with something unmistakably dangerous. "I've spent my entire career treating people with respect, something you seem unfamiliar with." The temperature in the room plummeted. Denise laughed sharply, but the laugh lacked its earlier confidence. She tried to regain footing by mocking his wealth, his suit, his success, anything to keep the upper hand. "You sit there in clothes worth more than people's salaries, lecturing me about respect." Freeman inhaled deeply. That was when he finally broke. "Lady," he said, his voice chillingly controlled, "you don't know the first thing about propaganda." The studio froze. "You gossip. You tear people down. You spread judgment about lives you've never lived." Denise blinked rapidly, visibly rattled for the first time. Freeman stood, slowly, powerfully. His full height towered over the desk, his presence overwhelming. Every eye in the studio widened. Even the cameras seemed to tremble. "You sit here pretending to stand for women while attacking anyone who threatens your fragile ego." Denise opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. "You claim to represent working women," he continued, voice booming. "Yet you vilify a man who came from poverty and worked for decades to earn everything he has." Linda whispered, "Oh my God." Freeman wasn't finished. "You think you can bully me? That I won't stand up for myself because of how I'm expected to behave? You've mistaken dignity for weakness." The crew stood paralyzed. The control room whispered frantic instructions. The audience stared, caught between awe and shock. There was no going back now. The confrontation had shifted. Freeman was no longer just defending himself. He was exposing her. And Denise Welch knew it. The studio had become a cathedral of silence. Every person in the room could feel the weight of what had just unfolded, and what was still unfolding. Morgan Freeman stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes locked on Denise Welch with a look that combined exhaustion, disappointment, and an authority that shook her confidence to its core. For a woman who had built her career on provocation, Denise now looked small. "You want honesty?" Freeman continued, stepping closer to the panel desk. "Here it is. I have worked with people who believed in their craft, who respected their colleagues, who understood what professionalism meant." He motioned toward the other panelists. "Your colleagues here do their jobs with dignity." Then his gaze snapped back to her. "But you've turned cruelty into entertainment." Denise swallowed, her complexion draining of its fiery color. She attempted a weak laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic." Freeman raised a hand, silencing her instantly. The authority in that simple gesture was breathtaking. "You asked why your viewers should care what I think," he said. "Maybe they shouldn't. But your viewers deserve better than this performance, this hostility, masquerading as journalism." Nadia looked down at the table, visibly ashamed. Linda nodded faintly, agreeing. Kay wiped the corner of her eye, shaken. "You want to know what I really do?" Freeman continued. "I tell stories. Stories that people carry with them. Stories that help them through loss, through grief, through joy. Stories that remind them they're not alone in a world that often feels cold." He leaned closer, voice softening but sharpening in meaning. "What do you offer them, Miss Welch? Judgment? Anger? Contempt? That's not honesty. That's poison." Denise's lips trembled. She tried again to speak, but Freeman was already unhooking his microphone pack. He placed it gently on the desk. That quiet sound echoed like an explosion. "Ladies," he said to the other hosts, "it was a pleasure meeting you. I wish today could have gone differently." He turned to leave, but paused for one last look at Denise. There was no anger left, only pity. "I hope you find whatever it is you're searching for, but you won't find it tearing people down." Morgan Freeman walked off the set with the poise of a man who had already forgiven everyone except the one person who didn't deserve it. The studio remained frozen long after the door closed behind him, and Denise Welch sat there, stunned, realizing too late that her 34 seconds of cruelty had cost her far more than she ever expected.